Welcome everyone, Christine here on Serious Gaming with a new discussion video on the subject matter of the Chaos Warriors DLC for Total War Warhammer. Did Creative Assembly really piss off a lot of people with this one? Like 30,000 dislikes on that video, which is the worst like to dislike ratio they've ever gotten on any video that they've ever done. You know, you look at the Rome 2 announcement, launch trailer, you look at DLC trailers, you look at say for instance the Greek city-states DLC trailer, you know, a lot of scummy things, blood DLC, all that stuff, and this is by far away the worst one. I think some people like Creative Assembly and Sega thought that the reaction would probably be the same as with other scummy stuff that they've done, but this is by far away the scummiest thing, and it's fat chaos in Warhammer, so obviously a lot more people are going to care about that. And it's a game with very few factions as is, so obviously people are going to care about that. And on top of that, it's quite frankly the most important fucking faction in the game. Why? Because the events that are about to unfold, which Creative Assembly themselves have admitted, are because of chaos, because this one faction, because of Archaon, the Lord of the End Times. That's really what it comes down to. Archaon, the Lord of the End Times, the ever-chosen of all the Chaos Gods, the guy who ended the fucking world, you know, is in this faction. He's the faction leader, right? He's one of the 3 legendary lords. On top of that, this faction has 3 legendary lords, whereas the other ones only have 2. Just making a point right there. You know, just things like that, as I personally see it when it comes to this DLC. Like they screwed up basically big time. Now, the fanboys would argue, oh, it's gonna blow over, it's exaggerated, all of that stuff. No, I don't think so. I think you might have looked at something like when there was backlash, a strong backlash against Blood DLC, and you know, some of the other scummy things that they've done, that you might have argued that was, you know, only a minority, a vocal minority on their forums. Might have been true. But in this particular case, I don't think it's just a vocal minority. I think a lot of people are looking at this and are quite pissed off at Creative Assembly and Sega. So let's get a couple of myths spewed by these imbeciles which defend Creative Assembly at every fucking turn. And I'll say this, for anyone that defends any video game company, why the fuck are you doing this? Like, with any company, why bother? You don't owe these companies anything, you're their consumers. If they do something shitty and is perceived as shitty, you may not care about that, or you may disagree that it's shitty, but why the fuck waste your time and, you know, stress? Why get yourself stressed defending them? It's not worth it. You know, this is something I realized years ago. No company is worth defending. Not CD Projekt, not Blizzard, certainly not a company like Creative Assembly, which shoves Total War games like Call of Duty every fucking year with the same kind of quality that Call of Duty has, which is fuck all. Hell, Call of Duty, at least the last 3 games, have actually gotten far better than they were. But I'm talking here Call of Duty level, looking at Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3. That's the kind of Call of Duty level, quality level I'm talking about. As in fuck all in terms of quality. That's what Total War has devolved to. And if you don't believe me, I would simply tell you this. There hasn't been a year since Empire has come out that they haven't shoved one game after another. Or an expansion to a game. Like it's either a full game or it's an expansion, not priced at full, at full price, but close to it anyway. You know, just what, 10, 20 bucks less than what you'd expect, until they broke that trend with Attila, which quite frankly is an expansion that's priced at full because, hey, lovely stuff, right? And with a huge amount of DLC to boot with Attila, so they've just gotten scummier and scummier over the last couple of years. Now, anyway, regards to some of the myths they say, it's like, oh, it's beneficial to them business-wise. Nope. They are probably suffering because of this business-wise. At least regards to this, like, you can look at other stuff and say, okay, people may not care about that all that much, so it's not really harming them. Though the negative publicity most certainly is harming them. But with this one, it absolutely fucking is. And the reason they do this, it's not because it's a smart business decision. In fact, it's a bad business decision, right? The reason they do this, the reason they engage in such shitty business practices is because when you look, and this is literally one of the worst, actually the scummiest pre-order bonus that I've ever seen from any company. And when it can beat Capcom, EA, Ubisoft, and so on in terms of scummy pre-order DLC or day one DLC or anything like that, then you're literally one of the worst gaming companies in the fucking world, right? Anyway, the reason they're doing this is because although you can argue CA is overall profitable, Sega is not. In fact, Sega is in pretty dire straits. Why? Because they're a scummy company which has released a bunch of turds. It's not like CA has done, as that's an exceptional games. They absolutely haven't, but they've done some good games. The Alien Isolation, just to give you an idea, Alien Isolation was a really fucking good game. Was one of my top 5 games of that year, right? I really liked Alien Isolation, good game. But even that one had very scummy DLC and sold well overall, but it pissed a lot of people off with that DLC. And if you want to know how scummy that DLC was, imagine the movie Alien, very iconic sci-fi movie, right? With a lot of impact. Imagine having a DLC with the main cast of that movie, and it's not pre-order bonus, it's pre-order exclusive DLC, with the main cast of that movie taking place during the events of that movie, that covers some of the events that took place during that fucking movie. And that's really fucking scummy. This is worse. This is actually worse. So it's not profitable. It's not real. It's not beneficial. It just pisses people off. Before this came up, I had bitched and moaned about the Blood DLC, but then we got more details. Like, oh, we're gonna have giant creatures, which the moronic fanboy said, oh, we won't have this XYZ because of XYZ reason, right? That's what they said. It's like, we won't have giant creatures, we won't have flying units, etc., etc., etc. Because these morons, they prepared themselves. They invent Creative Assembly even before Creative Assembly does anything. They preempt this crap. It's like, oh, they won't do this and that, defending them on stuff they haven't even announced, basically. And CA, people like me said that would be bullshit if they did that. They need to have this stuff because this is quite important. So what does CA do? Well, they have it. Right? They took out naval battles. No one really cares about that. I know some people are pissed off about that, but honestly, I can give a piss about naval battles. It's a bit of a shame, but honestly, naval battles are shit in the series, and they don't fucking matter that much in Warhammer. Why? Because Warhammer is set, at least where, this is old world. Warhammer is mostly set in the old world, which is just one gigantic landmass. That's not to say the sea isn't important, it's just, in Total War games as is, there's very few sea battles. In Warhammer, there'd be even fewer. Why devote so many resources in terms of making those battles work? I guess it's a shame that you won't have naval landings, like we had in Rome 2 and Attila, all that stuff. It's a shame we won't have that, but, beyond that particular point, can't say I give a piss about that. But, they were doing good things, like, the giant units, flying units, spells, heroes, quest lines with the heroes, actual fucking stories, which was a criticism. One of my friends who was really into Warhammer told me, he's like, Warhammer is character focused, and guess what? Total War isn't. Now apparently they're actually moving in that direction to actually have a character focus, a story focus, with the legendary lords and their storylines. So that's all well and good. That's great. In terms of what they're doing with the legendary lords, in terms of what they're doing in terms of story and all of that stuff, and just the way they're designing battles. Not having the ability to dismount while in battle is kind of shitty, but that's just one thing. Overall though, I was starting, hoping that this game might be good, that I was starting to get the positive impression, and then they do this. And I'm not alone in this. I'm pretty sure there were people that may have been on the fence regards to this, and now they're just pissed off. So that's an epic failure from Creative Assembly. Another point these moronic fanboys bring up is that, oh, it's so expensive to make a faction and we wouldn't have had it another way, which is complete and utter fucking bullshit. Because the faction was always going to be there. Maybe not playable, but you were always going to have chaos considering the timeline it's set in. You can't have the game in the old world in this particular timeline, before the events of Storm of Chaos and End Times, that's when the game starts. You can't have that without any fucking chaos. They were always going to be there. And the meat and potatoes of any faction in any Total War games are units, models, skins, heroes, research tree, tech tree, all of that stuff. And the vast majority of all that stuff, audio, all of that stuff would have been done regardless of whether or not Chaos was playable. Chaos Warriors, there's other Chaos factions. There's Beastmen, there's Demons, Skaven, etc., right? All these other factions, but Chaos Warriors is certainly the most important one in the universe, especially with Archaon leading it. So that's just one point to make right there. You are always gonna have this faction. It was teased in the fucking announcement trailer. It's like, oh, it's 6 months. No, it's not 6 months. They started working on this a long time ago. In fact, they probably have it fully playable, just like they have the dwarves and the orcs and probably the vampires, though they haven't shown us anything of the vampires yet. That's probably gonna be interesting. Zombies, undead, all that stuff should be interesting. Who knows? Maybe we'll have Nagash in this one. That would be a very interesting situation. Nagash, the Lord of all undead, the greatest necromancer, actually the necromancer of the Warhammer universe. Yeah, that's all very interesting. There's many other things as well to consider there. But yeah. This faction was always going to be in, whether or not it was playable. To make a faction playable from that, you add quest lines, victory conditions, family tree, all that. Oh, not in this case, but politics, all that stuff. And that's really it. It's not like the meat and potatoes of any faction are things that they would have done anyway. The stuff that they have to do in order to make it playable is quite minor in comparison. It doesn't cost all that much. So the argument is complete and utter fucking nonsense. On that particular level. Now, the third argument is the stupidest one, but why do you care if you're not gonna play it? To which I reply, because it's a very scummy decision. And this is my stance in terms of all pre-order bonuses or exclusive DLC and all that, even stuff I don't care. It's like, do I really care that the digital deluxe edition for, say, Dragon Age Inquisition has a special throne? No, I don't give a piss. That doesn't mean I agree with it. It's scummy. It's always scummy. All pre-order DLC in any shape or form, or exclusive DLC bonuses, time bonuses, all that stuff can all go to hell. Now, some people will argue, skins are fine, all that. XYZ is fine because they have XYZ reason. And my argument against that is, if you get into that point, the only thing you're gonna get into is playing the game the developers and publishers want you to play, which is basically argue over what is legit or what isn't legit. And that's not something that helps anyone. As I said, I don't care about, a lot of stuff, but my stance on all pre-order bonuses is, or exclusive or, if anything like that, especially retailer exclusive stuff, even if it's skins or, specific items that don't really matter, my stance is they all suck. They can all go to fucking hell. That's my stance. That's the stance I'm going to keep, and I think that's the correct stance to have on all pre-order DLC, Day 1 DLC, and all of that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's kind of really the point. It's kind of shame. Will I play it? That's an interesting question. What should we do, really? What stance should we take with regards to CA doing this? Should we boycott the game? Should we pirate the game? As some people are saying, it's like, I look forward to pirating this. Well, I think for the regular user, my stance would be simple. If you want to play it, if you are into Warhammer, or if you're into Total War, if you're into Warhammer and you're finally getting a fantasy game besides Warhammer Mark of Chaos, which is what I'm playing in the background here, took some video footage from my playthrough on the channel. If you're into Warhammer and you finally want to play a fantasy game that's not Mark of Chaos, and you find it difficult and you want to play it, then my suggestion would be this: buy it, but don't buy it at full price. I can't argue in favor of piracy. It's not like I have anything against it. It's just that, in my position, you can't make that point for a large number of reasons. My stance is, if you want to buy it, play it, all that, buy it at a discount. I would recommend sites like Kinguin. I'm not sure about G2A. G2A has given me problems, but Kinguin, is a very reliable site. For instance, I believe there was a Brazilian site or something like that, or Argentinian, that gave games. In fact, that's how I got Rome 2. I got it at a huge discount, like, I know, half the price or something like that. And that's what I do with a lot of games. I buy them at a lower price, and that's what I'd recommend you do. At least $10 less, just, or cheaper in general. Just get it cheaper, get it at the discount, at least $10, because that's about the cost of the DLC and the cost of the blood pack, which, you want the full game, all of that. So, that's what I would advise people to do. As for piracy, yeah, if you want to, fine, whatever, do it, really. These guys certainly don't deserve any respect or anything like that, as far as I'm concerned. As for boycotting it, that's all well and good. If you're willing to do that, at least boycott it temporarily until, there's a couple of patches. That might actually be the smartest idea, because Total War games are so broken at launch, and they usually take a lot of patching if they ever get it. There's so many broken Total War games or expansions that have never been fixed, nor will they ever be fixed, like Empire Total War as the perfect example. So just a point there. On top of that, as for what I'll personally do, well, I likely will get it. How exactly? Well, that remains to be seen, though I will likely get it, and I will play it on the channel, and I will bitch and moan at Creative Assembly for all their incompetence and scummy business decisions, unless they change their minds. I don't think it's a good idea for YouTubers to boycott something. I don't think that, I know someone like, say, Total Biscuit does that, right? He boycotted Mass Effect 3, for instance. My stance in regards to that is that we in the media is, media. I don't really consider myself in the media. In fact, I absolutely hate the media, but I guess that's the correct term. We as YouTubers, we shouldn't just sit back and, either not play a game, or if we play a game, never mention that. I think the correct path for YouTubers is to criticize this on a constant level. Always, be vigilant with regards to stuff like that, and not just shove it to the side just because we may not care about it when we're playing the game. It's something that we should keep into consideration. That's my personal stance on that matter. I will play it, but I'm gonna bitch and moan at Creative Assembly for it while playing it. In fact, I'm gonna start a Total War playthrough soon of Total War The Last Roman. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna bitch at Creative Assembly for, let's just say, their incompetence when it comes to making their games and their scummy business decisions. Because the reason behind that stance is because if you're not covering a game, a lot of people, the bigger you are as a YouTuber, then a lot of people may not know or may not care about it unless you bring it to their attention. If you bring it to their attention, and my stance is that one video on the subject matter, like say Angry Joe has done, is just simply not enough. You need to talk about them more, remind people of what's going on. And that's actually a reason I'm doing this video here. Remind people what's going on, remind them what this company has done, so on and so forth, because that's, quite frankly, important in its own way, and do mention it. Because I look at Total Biscuit, he hasn't covered Sega since he got some copyright strikes. I believe it was 2 copyright strikes on some Shining Force videos. So the scummy things that Sega do don't get mentioned by him, and the mass media doesn't give a piss. It's like, I remember a PC Gamer interview with Total War. It's like, will there be blood? I didn't notice like they were talking about Total War Warhammer, and it's like, I didn't notice any blood. Where's the blood? And it's like, it's gonna be DLC, and it's like PC Gamer didn't care, basically. That's how the mass media is. They don't give a piss, really. And people who give a piss may not mention it because of X, Y, and Z reasons. And really, if you're a YouTuber that relies on making Total War content, then I'll just say this: you are scumbags. You yourselves are scumbags for sucking CA's dick. You do not owe them anything. They themselves owe you stuff because you bring them free publicity, and they fucking know it, by the way. Instead, the people who you owe stuff to is the people watching your videos, the people who play Total War, the consumers. And you owe these consumers, you owe these people attention in terms of the issues that they're dealing with the crap of, the stuff that CA is doing as in terms of scummy DLC content. That's my stance regards to the whole affair. Anyway, Costin here on Serious Gaming, signing out. I'll bring another update in the case of any changes to the situation, though I don't think anything will change. On this, I don't think CA will cave down, because I don't think Sega will care about this. Like, ultimately, CA may have had the power to not do this. They may have had the power, but now that the genie is out of the bottle, I think only Sega, I might be wrong, by the way, but I think only Sega can change this. I don't think Sega cares, basically. Like, I think it would take a far bigger controversy than this, like even far bigger than probably Rome 2's controversy, for this to actually reach Sega's disc and for them to actually change their stance on this. I don't think that will happen, so that's just how things are going to be. And you know what my hope is in the future? My hope is that in a couple of years, Sega goes to fucking hell, not just for the stuff they do with Creative Assembly and Total War, but, you see the stuff that they're doing with Relic, for instance. God, so much crappy DLC in that game, in Relic's games as well. Bloody hell. You see, I hope they go to hell, and I hope someone buys Creative Assembly that has far better business sense.